emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and,
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 1317.SS0606. Certificate number 19230. The Tooth Fairy.
It's my tooth. It's fallen out. Will I grow a new one, Mummy?
Yes, you will, Pepper. It also means the Tooth Fairy will be paying you a visit.
Tooth fairy?
Yes, the Tooth Fairy.
I guess we should say, first of all, with Christmas on the way, that if we're going to discuss the folklore of the Tooth Fairy and other nighttime gift-giving visitors...
Oh, that we should have all the kids leave the room?
Well, if you are listening with someone who would prefer a more reality-based approach to Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy and so on, maybe this is not the right episode. Maybe go find one where John talks about MIGs or something.
When you say reality-based, you mean that those things are real and that they bring you presents.
Correct.
That those people are real, those entities.
Yes, not the mythology of them, which is a whole different angle.
Yeah. It's just like talking about the Bible as a piece of literature. If you don't want to hear it, get out now.
That's right. Our First Amendment right allows us to talk about the Tooth Fairy as a folkloric totem. Talisman, something.
Mm-hmm. Let's say that.
I just remember last time we talked about, like, when our kids learned about Santa, like, we got horrified moms who were like, I had that on in the car.
Oh, no, I listened to it with my 6-year-old.
I've been lying to my kids for years for no reason about a fat guy.
Wow. Wow.
Isn't that what...
Way to body shame Santa.
Santa's good at his job. He has to fit down small spaces.
Yeah, he does. He's like a rat. If he can get his head in...
That's why Santa has those big whiskers. So he knows. He's like, what's the diameter of this chimney? Okay, I'm good.
All right, well, disclaimer lodged.
Disclaimer lodged. Because, this is the time of year when people are sensitive about that.
Yeah.
And maybe we should be doing a Santa show. But since you've lost some teeth recently, I was wondering how much money you got.
A tooth. And I lost this tooth a long time ago. I've been wearing a false tooth for many years.
Did they give you the false tooth back so you could put it under your pillow?
I mean, I definitely have it, along with many other that I've worn. I mean, when I say false teeth, it implies that it's like carved out of wood or that it's...
I was going to say whalebone.
But it basically is. It's essentially, it's just a hardened piece of toothpaste from the end of the toothpaste. If you haven't used your toothpaste.
I have one of those in my mouth right now, I think.
I fitted it in there and then sort of...
You're like in prison. Yeah. I fashioned a new tooth in year 6.
And it's because, dentistry is a criminal enterprise.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
What are they laundering money for?
I think their own boats. I think what they're doing is converting my pain into a boat for themselves.
It's amazing. Science is amazing.
Or a 6,000 square foot house, or I don't know what dentists do.
Did you...
Private property.
Do you think you might keep the tooth and try to grow another John Roderick from it?
No.
Is it in a jar in a lab?
In fact, at one point, because of this tooth odyssey I've been on, at one point a surgeon said, well, we have to pull your wisdom teeth. And I had 4 healthy wisdom teeth that had been in my mouth the whole time.
This is in your 40s or 50s?
This is in my 40s. We have to pull those out because we're going to do this massive, massive reconstruction of your whole mouth because God made you wrong. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like God and I have reached some kind of accommodation with one another.
Also, that seems like a very regressive view.
It's extremely bad.
God doesn't make junk, John.
Hey, that's right.
You're not broken.
God ain't made
He
no
made
junk.
you the way you are.
Well, that's what I kept saying, and they were like, "No, because the way you are is wrong, and if we leave you like this, then you'll just gradually eat away your own head."
You know, they were just worried that you were too wise.
Maybe
They're like, this guy's got too much wisdom. Which molars can we address that with?
So this butcher of Bellevue pulled out all 4 of my wisdom teeth for no reason, and then gave them to me in an envelope. And because I'm a big man, the largest of those wisdom teeth is the size of a domino. And
Is that how you use them now?
no, I mean I have them in a little thing that says wisdom teeth.
And people think they're horse teeth.
I pick them out and I shake them sometimes, and I go, "Oh, wisdom teeth, what should I do?"
That's what you should do. You should make a little fortune-telling thing out of them.
Yeah,
Throw those bones.
throw those bones.
I guess teeth are not bones, right?
Oh well,
I mean,
it beats me.
They're calciferous, but they're not bone.
Yeah, they're not bone. I mean,
They have
don't-
different. I mean, that's the problem
They
with
don't
teeth.
heal is one of the things.
Well, that's the problem with teeth. They are dead. At least your bones have, stuff going on. Marrow's probably doing stuff right now. Whereas teeth are covered with enamel, and it's the hardest stuff in us, and it's dead. And so teeth can't get bigger or smaller.
No, but you wish they were deader because in the center there's the most sensitive place.
That's why the hardest stuff is on the outside, just like some of us,
Yeah, like my heart.
Yeah. Sometimes the hardest among us have just the softest nougaty centers. But anyway, that's why we can't be born with just one set of teeth that will last us a lifetime because they're the size they are. And I guess I had the idea that
But why don't we get a third set?
some animals do. Most mammals are, like us, diphyodonts, which means,
Okay, Mr. Big Shot.
well, maybe you're not, but I'm a proud diphyodont. And, it just means that you have these deciduous teeth, these milk teeth that come out.
Yeah.
And while your milk teeth have been in there, getting further and further apart as your mouth grows into that weird 5-year-old's smile, the actual tooth-making tissue down in your jaw, down in the dwarf mines of your jaw, they have found mithril. And they're making new teeth. Like, you didn't come with those. Those teeth are not in your jaw if you x-ray a baby. There's not big adult teeth there waiting to break out. They've been slowly growing
Right.
when it was a toddler.
They're Durin's Bane.
And they are, they come out, they hurt. They're baby's bane. The baby cries when the little ones come out, and then it hurts again when the big ones come out. But there are animals that do that many times. Polyphyodonts, some mammals like elephants, kangaroos, manatees, they can just keep making teeth.
Really?
Yeah, kangaroo will just be eating something, tooth will fall out, won't even notice. Animals often eat the teeth that fall out because they're like, oh, there's something crunchy in my eucalyptus today or whatever. And then they can just keep making teeth.
I think of that as a shark thing, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, manatees are the sharks of the sea, it's often said. Kangaroos, sharks of the outback. Elephants are the sharks of the Itumba
Savannah,
reintegration unit. Yeah. And some mammals are monophyodonts. Rodents, many rodents are whales. They get big teeth, and then when they're babies, and it just stays there.
Wait, toothy whales only get one set of teeth?
Yeah.
Oh,
They're the opposite of sharks.
yeah.
They are
the opposite of sharks.
They're the unsharks of the sea.
I mean, I guess the opposite of sharks are birds.
Right. Yeah. Really? You think?
I don't know.
What animal is least like a shark? Go, chinchilla?
Okay.
Amoeba?
I think chinchilla is probably close. Yeah, I was going to say dove, but when you throw amoeba in there, I guess amoeba.
I think we've talked about tooth fairy lore, like our own childhood stories, maybe our kids' stories. I can't remember when. Maybe George Washington's teeth. Did we talk about the tooth fairy
that's
then?
probably when.
I didn't remember any of my own family tooth fairy lore, but luckily, my wife had a blog when my kids were little, as was the mommy style at the time.
I see.
And it's like the only reason we know anything about our children, like literally. Like, because she'll be like, well, let me just check my defunct blog. And there were like 5 great tooth fairy stories, the time that like Dylan lost a tooth at school and swallowed it in his sandwich. And this had happened so many times that they were all ready. And so he came home with a paper cutout of a tooth that he was so proud of because the school issued, so you swallowed your tooth at school,
a certificate.
Consolation prizes. Yeah,
And so
they're like the Wizard of Oz. You need a testimonial.
Did they get $1? Did they get $5? What did you give?
Not
your
at
kids
school
for?
because of the
No,
separation
of
of church and state.
Of course.
Well,
Money isn't real.
My memory is when I was a kid, I was excited to get 50 cents.
Yeah, I think I got a quarter.
It was like a coin, right?
Yeah.
You got a quarter, and if it was like multiple quarters, you were like, hello.
Yeah.
This is almost an X-Men comic or whatever.
I think our difference in age is the difference between 1 quarter and 2.
You never got 50 cents.
I might have gotten like a $50 coin. No, I don't think so. A $50 coin? My God, you could fill up the tank.
I mean, maybe your grandpa would give you like some weird giant Eisenhower coin at some point, but the Tooth Fairy didn't carry that stuff.
I'm not sure I ever got more than a quarter.
I mean, it lasts for a while. Your incisors fall out first, and you can be as young as 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But then you'll keep losing molars into your early teens.
Yeah.
Although maybe the Tooth Fairy doesn't help you out with molars.
Yeah, maybe not.
But so my late teeth and your late teeth and my early teeth would have been about the same economy.
Yeah. I mean, in high school, you drill a little hole through them and give them to your girlfriend as a necklace.
No, you're not in Vietnam, John. Don't do that. I don't remember what we gave it. My guess is it's $1. I don't know. Did you feel the pressure to give more than $1?
No, what we discovered was the Sacagawea dollar, which looks like a gold coin and has a powerful female figure
holding a baby. It's the most maternal.
That's right.
Of the species.
And we called him a golden D.
What's the D for?
Dollar.
Oh.
Golden D.
Okay, fair enough.
Were you like D's?
I retract my question. Yeah, I was like, what is going on here?
So she had a gold D under her pillow until she stopped. I mean, I guess she'll probably lose a molar at some point and expect her golden D.
The golden D. You guys have your own nomenclature.
Everything. I mean, we make up words over here all the time.
But the funny thing is when you do that to a kid, your kid for a while thinks that everyone has that. So your kid will just be on the school bus being like, hey, did you get a golden D?
Yeah. Right.
And everyone else is like, what are you talking about? I think this is pretty important because if you think about it, when I say we, I mean
you,
waspy Americans.
Oh.
We don't have a good rite of passage in our culture, right? Like we don't
go into the yurt and take mushrooms.
Or even like bar mitzvahs or quinceañeras like our neighbors. Like we're bereft of this wonderful, comforting thing.
I mean, the Catholics have their confirmation, but yeah, the WASPs.
The WASPs, like we're just like, we don't need that. Our kids should not have that luxury. I
mean, true WASPs have the rite of passage when you start drinking gin.
It's like 11.
You and I are we don't get to participate in that.
When Daddy lets you pull the boat out of the dock.
Exactly.
I guess that's a dentist.
You can first drive the golf cart.
I mean, we have some of those. Like we do still have rites of passage, but they come later because it's like your driver's license, your Sweet 16 party, your graduation. There's high school and college related ones, but really like the time when a kid feels like things are changing are like kind of that toddler to child boundary, home to school. That's when all the incident is. It's in the 5 to 10 tooth falling out time.
Well, I gamified it and also made it less fun by saying at every birthday that she got one new privilege and one new responsibility. And she could pick what they were. And the privilege was always something really short term. And she always tried to make the responsibility something very, very easy to accomplish. Was it multiple choice? Like, did you give a bunch of crappy privileges and like onerous responsibilities? I mean, what she wanted was usually an extension on her bedtime. And then the responsibility was always something like empty the dishwasher.
And it's gonna be forgotten.
Yeah.
Like in 2 weeks, nobody is clearing the table or whatever, walking the dog.
My sister and I were just discussing this, that my daughter's mother / my partner she has no desire or capacity to hold our daughter to any kind of strictures. It's just like, your job is to empty the dishwasher. Meh, I didn't want to. Okay, I'll do it.
Well, what can I do?
And it's just like,
She said no.
what can I do?
Yeah, we kind of have that as well.
What were your rites of passage? Aren't there some in the church?
Like when for me as a kid?
No, for you as a 50-year-old.
I guess I'm
Ken,
like,
it's a second mortgage.
I'm getting up to pee more at night. Is that a responsibility or is that a privilege?
Oh my God, I had a a lunch with my little dim summit dudes the other day. And it was the first time that I was like, you guys taking low sartan? And they were like, what's low sartan? And I was like, oh, you're gonna need to start taking statins.
How has this not? You can't be the oldest of those guys. You guys weren't already talking colonoscopies every month?
Well, no, but they're all neglecting their. They haven't had their 50-year-old physical yet. And I'm like, yeah, what you're going to need is a statin for your cholesterol. You're going to, those of you with hypertension are going to need hydrochlorothiazide. And then I was like, let me tell you about my miracle pill that helps you pee. And they were fascinated. Like everybody was just leaning in. Tell us more. And I suddenly realized this is what my dad and his friends talked about for 40 years.
You're like the dungeon master. Everyone's like, what's going to happen next?
I used to sit at these Chinese restaurants in Tacoma while they talked about their prostates, and I'd be like, you guys are so boring. And they're like, just wait.
I think I told you this, but every time I go backstage on Jeopardy, hair, makeup, and wardrobe, they were all Alex's people. Yeah. They've been there for decades.
And they're like, do you need a pee, Ken?
They are always talking about colonoscopies or, whatever prescription meds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can we not? And they're like, sorry, the last host was like 82. You're
right.
You are now 82 by the transitive property of us.
So what have you given any thought to what we secular Americans who are divorced from any ancient culture should be doing to help our children make this transition?
It's true. Like once even without a religion, you don't even have now you're in the big kid Sunday school class or whatever that would even be.
And we all have nuclear families, so you can't even move up to the big table at Thanksgiving.
You don't have to be in mom and dad's bed when they're getting it on anymore, like our hunter-gatherer ancestors when they turned 13.
Right, all 9 of us in a one-bedroom apartment
under the mastodon fur. Yeah, there's really not a lot of. I think that's why the tooth fairy became a thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that's why our world is crumbling. And
that's right. We need to get the kids back in the pews.
Yes, back in the pews.
And you can create those things at home, I guess. I don't know. A lot of it is. Maybe you don't need that. A lot of it was tied to Freudian thought in the late 19th and early 20th century. That's the age where the kid is no longer bound by the Oedipal complex. That's a big turn in their psyche because they no longer want to kill their parents or whatever. And so, we don't think that way anymore about a 6-year-old.
Well, what we're not discussing because we're both so focused in our patriarchal bubbles is menstruating.
Well, yeah, but that's later too. I guess earlier every year. But that's
because of plastic water bottles.
because of all the GMOs and the milk hormones.
But for sure, that's whoa, okay, now it's a different
It is.
World. Yeah.
But it's 3 or 4 years after this kind of tooth moment. That's not the homeschool transition. That's just one of the many kind of pubertal transitions that kids maybe don't want to celebrate. Although it's it would be great if they could. It would be great if there weren't any kind of.
Well, we tried to mark it as a positive,
You say we, but did you see the thing from Yelm, Washington last week, where some girl wasn't allowed to go to the restroom until she could produce blood?
What?
Yeah.
What? She couldn't pee her whole life until she could produce blood?
That's right. She had been holding it until she was 11.
Now you can go to the bathroom.
No, the teacher wouldn't let her out. He's like, you really? Your period? You have to get up here and tell everybody you're on your period.
Oh, my God.
And by that time,
oh, my God.
By that time, there's blood on the desk.
Well, that's Yelm.
Don't raise your girls in Yelm.
No, we're living in Seattle and everybody. It's not like we told everybody at the school, but it's here at the house. It's like, oh, yeah, let's have a cake.
We send out an Evide for sure.
Is it like a gender reveal where you send up a balloon, except it's a big red balloon?
The cake's a big tampon. No, it should be celebrated for sure. But I'm just saying it's not the right. It's not a good tooth fairy substitute.
No, okay, you're right. It's too late.
The Menzies fairy the ovum fairy is going to come.
What does the ovum fairy do? Leaves $1 in your underwear?
Scrapes out your ova.
And for boys, what is the equivalent? I guess it's just that they start masturbating.
I know.
Right.
First wet dream.
How do you celebrate that?
What does the cake look like?
Good job. Good job.
I mean, even today, good thing we sent the kids out of the room for this show.
Yeah, get out.
Even today, good enlightened parenting is like, that's private. We never want to think or talk about that. Like,
yeah, I think that's bad.
You think there should be more talk around the
not public
dinner table?
But I do think that I think we make all of that stuff, which is such a massive part of our adult lives, in this transition period, this pubertal period. We just heap shame on it all, and then expect that we're going to have healthy sex lives and healthy relationships to our body by learning about sex from our fellow 8th graders.
That's where it should come from.
I mean, what I learned about sex, I was 40 years old before I understood that the stork didn't bring the baby. Really? And that really complicated matters.
What a shock that must have been for you.
It was terrible.
I mean, maybe there's so much just inherent horror about the way your body is changing, like it's a Cronenberg movie, that maybe no amount of parental like backslapping is actually up to the task of making kids feel normal about puberty. Like maybe it's just a doomed effort.
Yeah, I guess. Although it seems like the first time you get a job should be a really dismal, morbid day. Like, well, here it is. You're an apprentice now. So don the black. But instead we're like, good job, you got a job. So it seems like all the...
And conversely, the first time you jerk off...
we're like, shame.
And that's when we should be having the neighbors and the grandparents over.
I mean,
there probably are African tribes where it's like, Kawembe is a man now.
Yeah, I guess.
I have no idea.
I mean, I think you naturally go hide under a bush or hide under a bushel, depending on where you're from.
What if you're in the savannah? No bush.
No bush, no bushel. Hide under a baobab tree.
That's right.
Now, everybody knows I love my Miracle Made sheets. And at this time of year, they make the perfect holiday gift for someone you love. They use silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA to thermoregulate and keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. These sheets are self-cleaning in the sense that they are silver-infused, and that silver helps prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, which leaves them cleaner and fresh 3 times longer. As a bachelor, let me tell you, that is a major bonus. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable. They don't have the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on gross bacteria, and if you love someone, you're going to want them to stop sleeping on gross bacteria too. So get them Miracle Made sheets for the holidays. Go to trymiracle.com/omnibus. That's trymiracle.com/omnibus to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code OMNIBUS at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/omnibus and use the code OMNIBUS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/omnibus. Now, Ken, regular listeners to the program will recognize that I'm a little bit of a fashion plate. That is to say, I like to wear nice clothes, vintage clothes, attractive menswear. In a world where other people wear pajamas to work and on airplanes, I prefer to stay casual but cool. The problem is, of course, a lot of these old wool pants are uncomfortable, yes, and scratchy, and they don't move with the body, really. That wasn't what they were made to do. But I'm an active guy, a modern guy. And although I like to look good, I also like to keep moving and keep busy. And I have found the perfect solution to look good and be comfortable, and that is through Public Rec. Public Rec has sent us a couple of pairs of pants. I know you got some too, and I'll let you talk in a second, or maybe I won't. Public Rec pants are unlike a lot of kind of these modern tech pants that only come in small, medium, and large. Public Rec actually lets you buy pants in your actual sizes, whatever it is. If you're a 2836 or a 4430, you can buy tailored pants, custom pants to fit your body. But they fit and feel like sweats. They look like slacks and they fit like sweats. And it's like kind of been revolutionary for me. I throw them on. I go outside. I look like I'm dressed as some kind of hot mover and shaker. And in fact, I feel like I'm one of those pajamas at work and on an airplane people. It's the perfect solution. They have a kind of a proprietary blend of performance materials that provides the perfect combination of breathability and stretch while still holding its form. And frankly, I never want to take them off. Public Rec not only has the most comfortable pants ever made, but they have a huge selection of high-quality everyday basics like polos and shirts and hoodies. So here's what I'm recommending you do, and these make a perfect gift at the holidays. Stop suffering in regular pants and give the gift of comfort this holiday season. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off when they use the code OMNIBUS at checkout. That's 20% off with the code OMNIBUS. Ken, I see you wanting to say something, but hold your horses. Let me finish. At Public Rec, that's PUBLICREC.com, and get 20% off. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about the pants, and I want you to please support our show and tell them that we, Omnibus, sent you. Say goodbye to pants that put up a fight, because when comfort meets style, you've found Public Rec.
I think the reason, I mean, speaking of like, pre-modern peoples, trying to trace the story of this kind of coming of age folklore. First of all, teeth have always been symbolically important, maybe for the reasons we talked about in the George Washington show, in a time before good dental care and artificial teeth. Like that was a lot of prestige, was this guy can still chew sorghum. Right. Like he's the king.
Well, it's the reason that you would die at 40, right? That your teeth had all fallen out and you couldn't eat anymore, and the other people in the village were tired of mushing up your food.
Is that right?
I think so.
Wander out into the savannah and die.
Yeah, well, if you can't chew your meat, you can't have any pudding.
It's true.
Yeah.
But pudding's easier to chew. Maybe not those British puddings.
But that's what I'm saying. You can't have the pudding if you don't eat your meat.
It's sitting there all gloppy and tempting, but there's all this tough, dry British roast beef in the way. Like there's in the Old Testament, there's all these curses about like, may God break the teeth of our enemies. Like the worst thing they could think of to do to their enemies would be like, I hope Yahweh just breaks all their teeth. That'd learn them.
Can you imagine if Marvel had any creativity and they had like a bad superhero that his power was that he could break your teeth?
You could probably do it with ultrasonics, right?
Yeah.
And to this, to this day, but like well into like new contact with tribes in South America and Africa in the 19th and 20th centuries, we discovered that there were peoples who had traditions along these lines. Like if your teeth are broken, you have a broken tooth, you can't be a king. Or to the effect that if you are the king and and one of your teeth breaks, you're out. You get deposed.
And this was a big part of like the way that in Alaska, we often said, well, before the before the arrival of Europeans, there was no tooth decay among the indigenous peoples of Alaska because there wasn't any kind of sugar or thing that could have decayed teeth. And that was part of this European mythos about the native Alaskans. Like, oh, they had perfect teeth because of all they did was chew blubber.
I mean, it's probably true that there's less tooth decay, but for them, the problem is not cavities. It's like, I bit a bone and now I don't have this tooth anymore, and it'll never be there.
Or wearing teeth down, I think, is probably the big...
Right.
That's what the dentist kept saying to me.
So teeth have always had this kind of totemic power, and what that means is my teeth are myself. They are my potency, I guess, for a male chief. Like, this is a sign of my virility. Like, protect the teeth at all cost. And that came to be tied in with traditions about how they had to be kept away from your enemies. Like if...
Your teeth did.
Yeah, what if a sorcerer got a hold of one of your teeth? Then they could do curses on you, and you'd be in trouble. So teeth had to be protected. And normally it's not a problem because we're not just leaving teeth around the house. I mean, maybe you are with your little whittled ones.
Some of us.
But it's very hard for the witch doctor to get a hold of my teeth because they're always in my head.
Right.
But that's not true of a child because you would lose teeth. And so there would be all these parental traditions built up around, like, what do we do with the tooth? We have to make sure no witch gets the tooth.
Do you put it in the hammer and pestle and grind it up and put it in your salad?
They're, in 1963, writing in a British dental journal, a historian or a scientist named B.R. Townend cataloged the 9 ways in which cultures tried to dispose of baby teeth in order to keep them out of the wrong hands.
Was this a nursery rhyme? The 9 ways?
We can make it rhyme, maybe.
Simon Garfunkel song?
It's kind of hard to make it rhyme. You're the songwriter. Let me tell you the 9 ways, and maybe you can hum something. Okay. So you could take the tooth and you could throw it into the sun.
No.
I don't know if you have to be. You have to be Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
Throw it in the sun.
I think it's like you throw it up toward the sun with the idea that the sun god, the benevolent sun god, will help you.
But then you immediately see it fall down onto the floor.
You don't. You lose it in the sun like a fly ball.
I see.
You could throw it into the fire.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Throw it between your legs. This one's a little confusing because you'd think then you would just see it over there somewhere.
But no.
Throw it over the roof.
Okay, I'm beginning to see what these are.
For people who have never been behind their own hut, that one's very, very convincing. I'll just throw it over the roof.
But what these seem to be is that once you've done these things, the tooth has lost its power it's lost its connection to you and your spirit.
Even if it were found,
it's gone over the roof.
Who cares? Yeah, we did the thing. It's gone over the roof.
Why is that not a phrase? Oh man, that's gone over the roof.
What do we say? Water over the bridge.
Yeah, or under the bridge.
Teeth over the roof.
We don't say water over the bridge.
Water over the dam.
Water over the dam, under the bridge.
This is the new climate change version, is water over the bridge. There was a fifth one. There were a couple animal-related ones where either you would hide it somewhere, like you would either 6, bury it, 7, hide it from animals, 8, put it in a tree or a wall, or number 5, give it to an animal, put it in a mouse hole.
You put it in a mouse hole
to make sure the mouse
feed it to an ocelot.
Well, if you have an ocelot handy,
I do feel like hide it in a wall seems like all those people that are restoring old farmhouses when they tear down the wall and they're hoping that there's a basket of gold or some kind of old candy bar wrapper. How many of them find teeth and don't talk about it? Teeth just
pour out like a slot machine. Yeah. Jackpot. And then the final one, the 9th one, the tooth gets swallowed, either by the child or by the mother.
That was Dylan's method.
It worked at school.
It seems like nobody cursed him because he's doing well.
He didn't. Well, he got $1 or whatever it was for the paper tooth that he put under his pillow. He never combed his output to try to get the tooth back and see if he could get a second $1 out of it.
Yeah.
Get the golden D. So there was this culture of, kind of superstitiously disposing of the tooth in a magical way. And often there would be a charm that would go with that, or some kind of ritual, an incantation, you would have to say. For example, the Bemba people of Zambia would take the tooth and a piece of charcoal and throw the charcoal to the west. They'd throw the tooth to the east, and then you would just, as you do, you would recite, "As the piece of charcoal sinks in the setting sun, a new tooth will arise in the sun at dawn." Whereas in rural Greece, you say, "Crow, crow, take my old tooth." and bring me a new fine tooth. So these incantations are all aimed at one thing, and it's not our thing of turning the tooth into money. It's like, I got to do this right to make sure I get the good new tooth. They're worried about something going wrong.
And the evil eye gets on
with
their
the
tooth.
replacement tooth. Yeah. So at first it's like, I need to make sure nobody gets a hand on the old tooth and then has power over me.
Right.
And makes me into a zombie. But it's also like, I better make sure I get the new tooth. And our modern, version of this, the tooth fairy, is very different because it's not concerned. We don't think the tooth fairy brings the new teeth.
No.
We think the new tooth will come automatically, I guess, in a time of better diet and dental care. I don't know.
The tooth fairy does inexplicably want your teeth.
Yes.
She comes and takes your teeth. And my daughter did ask, what does the tooth fairy do with the teeth? At some point along the way. And I had to say that I thought she built a castle out of teeth.
That's pretty good. That's solid.
Yeah, it would be beautiful, wouldn't it? If you built like an actual castle just out of teeth.
It would look like one of those little castles at the bottom of aquariums.
Right. Except what if the tooth fairy had magical like shrinking and then regular size powers? So she was our size, living on a cloud, but had a our size castle, but made out of baby teeth. That's how I imagined it.
Do you think the tooth fairy is human sized? I always thought she was flitting in like Tinkerbell.
Well, I may be influenced by the many, many communities online that have turned fairies, winged fairies, into fetish items. And a lot of those men seem to be the ones that are the opposite of like the giant woman fetish. They like the tiny woman. But I always like, my fetishes to be conducted with life-size humans.
You like a good medium-sized fairy.
Yeah, I don't want a super giant, like, whoa, and I don't want I just want a regular person. So.
That fetish has always seemed problematic either way. Like, it seems like there would be certain incompatibilities.
It does.
If the woman is the size of a skyscraper or a chess pawn.
I don't know if you know this, but people have a lot going on, and they're working it out in various ways. And,
they don't want to hear my follow-up questions about.
For me, it's just that Tinkerbell can be normal sized, and that the tooth fairy
I'm
is
an ordinary guy,
normal sized.
I just have one request:
a giant castle made out of baby teeth.
Well, there's actually a woman who we'll meet her in a bit who studied tooth fairy folklore. This didn't happen until our lifetimes. Like, not until the late 70s was the tooth fairy explored academically.
Yeah, that's because up until then, people had real work to do.
The GI Bill created a bunch of social scientists.
Yeah, there's a lot of spare time now and a lot of academic degrees.
All the labor-saving devices of the modern age led to tooth fairy research.
Every time I hear somebody start talking about, well, their dissertation was in, I'm like, okay, here we go.
She spent her years surveying thousands of parents about the tooth fairy and found, maybe something like 79% of parents refer to the tooth fairy and kids think of the tooth fairy as she, her, whereas
only 79%.
Only 79%, yeah. It's roughly 10% equally split between our tooth fairy is ungendered, our tooth fairy is actually a he.
Wow.
I guess maybe problematic. I don't know.
I don't know. It had never occurred to me.
I mean, Shakespeare had male fairies, but it's just, that's nomenclature you might want to stay away from today.
Well, if you spell it with an A-E, I think
there
you're
you go.
safe.
Then you're safe. Then you're safe. Good point. And, she would study, what do they look like? Kids and parents sent her pictures of what they imagined the tooth fairy to be like. A lot of the...
Tinkerbell.
I think that's the problem is... The Edwardian love for fairies warped this. But I think you can see why fairies got linked to, in modern times, got linked to these, what do you do with the tooth kind of legends? Because there are things in ancient fairy myths that are resonant here. For example, the tooth fairy leaving a coin. Fairies have long been associated with hoards of gold, right? Oh. There's the fairy gold that's magical and turns back into flowers. The leprechaun or the sprite has the little pot of gold that the humans are always after.
Right.
So the fairy is the most coin associated,
Gold
the
hoarder.
most coin centric of the mythical
Although
creatures.
dragons hoard gold.
Do you want a dragon to come under your pillow at
That's
night?
the thing. You want something cute.
And fairies also, there are lots of myths about them visiting cradles to exchange things, but these are like actually creepy myths. These are like changeling myths where the fairy steals away your baby and replaces it with a fairy replica.
Right, or
baby.
steals its breath or something. Or is that
Exactly.
cat?
So we're kind of neutering these kind of horrifying European folk tales to
those
make
are-
them more plausible. Yeah, the fairy is going to come kneel by your bed and it is going to do a switcheroo, but don't worry, honey, it probably won't be you.
It feels like a lot of those German horror stories are just trying to explain to people why like 4 out of 6 babies died.
That's probably a lot of it. Or I guess if you go on to do something terrible to your baby, maybe it's helpful to be able to be like, we always thought it was probably a changeling, so...
Or if your baby becomes Hitler, you're like, oh, he didn't get into art school.
Changeling. And a lot of these... And there's also these kind of fairy-related myths of parents putting things under pillows to protect kids.
Oh, yeah.
So you would have like a cross... I mean, it might be a cross or something, but there's a lot of stories of people putting knives under their...
That seems like a Serbian thing.
You think the Serbs are always putting knives under
I
pillows?
feel like the Serbs put a knife in the bassinet of a baby boy just to make sure.
They think about vampires and vodvolikas more than we do.
My brother David kept a pistol under his pillow that apparently he took from a cop. But knowing that guy, I doubt he ever... I mean, if he took a pistol from a cop, he snuck it out of the cop's holster. It's not like he did it in a
And this is
brave
not like,
way.
and this is not his crib, right? He wasn't like 3 when he got the cop's gun.
Oh, no. When he was 3, he was a pampered boomer baby like the rest of them, but then he went dark. And maybe because a fairy like took his...
Maybe he's changeling David.
Yeah, he changed.
He took a walk on the wild side. And then there's even stories of like, being so worried that your child will get taken by the spirits. Often it's a drowning related myth, like taken by the water spirits, that you actually sacrifice some possession of the kid, like a coin, to go throw it. Maybe this is why the throw the coin in the well thing. It's like
for luck.
I gotta appease the water spirits here. Like if they have this, maybe they won't come for my child.
That makes sense. We're throwing coins in fountains to appease the water spirits so they don't come for our children.
And does it work in the mall? I don't know.
So the water spirits haven't come for my child yet.
I have none of my kids drowned in the fountain at Alderwood Mall, so
There you go.
I guess I'm a good parent.
It only cost a penny.
But notice how none of those things are all that tooth specific. They're just kind of fairy-like superstitions that kind of vibe with our modern idea of the tooth fairy. Our first evidence of any kind of European culture doing a baby tooth for coin exchange is mentioned in the Norse Eddas. So we can get back to the 13th century here, and there was a tandfe, a tooth fee that would sometimes be paid to the child as a marker of losing the tooth.
Boy, this really does sound Scandinavian now that you know.
Like all of our weirder things, probably started with the Vikings.
But as you said at the beginning, now that I'm thinking about it, the teeth are unique in that the only other things that come out of us are waste products.
Right.
But the teeth really seem like a substantial part of us, and we do lose them. So it's not like...
Right, it's the only thing like that.
Yeah, you don't collect your sleepies and put them in a jar and burn them for the gods, but you do lose these things that appear to be, and are really crucial.
And
oh, wow. Oh, interesting.
So
and that's very Scandinavian, too.
And shortly after that, we start to see spreading throughout Europe this idea that there is a magical gift-giving visitor associated with the custom of the baby tooth.
This is a thought technology that the Gauls didn't have, and then they were like, wow, these marauding Vikings have brought a lot of pestilence and war, but also fairies.
My guess is it post-dates other magical gift-giving visitors. Like, when did we first think that the Three Kings or St. Nicholas were going to give you a little...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I thought about this a lot, and I think, gift-giving seems pretty universal. Like, all cultures have gift-giving, but I had no luck finding any tradition of lying to your kids about giving your child a gift, but then saying that it was a mysterious visitor in the night. We have a lot of those, but it doesn't seem inevitable because I don't think Chinese or Islamic civilization ever
threatens their kids.
Well, they never got. I mean, that's the purpose of it originally.
I mean,
if you're
Santa
not
Claus.
if you're not good, it's not me withholding your gifts.
Right.
It's a nebulous judge.
Santa definitely is very judgy, and your presents are conditional.
He knows if you've been naughty or nice.
But is there any part of the Tooth Fairy where the coin has any conditions on it, or is it
in the 20th century? Yes, actually, but I think that might be kind of post hoc. There are parenting experts who are like, it's okay to lie to your kids about the Tooth Fairy, but maybe tell them that what the Tooth Fairy really likes is a nice shiny tooth that's been brushed and flossed nicely. So it's like a tooth care motivational speech.
right? Those experts also would have been doing something more important prior to the
GI Bill.
the post-war era.
I mean, so maybe it's just an accident that Western culture latched onto this. Somebody's coming in the night and it's bringing your gift. And if you run Western civilization again 100 times, that's just a weird thing that never happens because it doesn't seem inevitable at all. But here we are, stuck with it. At least 3 different. And it's so good that other cultures are like, now China does have Old Christmas Man just because they're like.
Is that what the 3 symbols
they've seen our movies.
say? Old Christmas Man.
I think it's something like that, like literally, like because they saw Santa in our movies and our Coca-Cola ads and they were like, we're going to get us one of those.
Yeah, and Kentucky Fried Chicken to boot.
Exactly.
Well, how much of this has to do with as organized religion declines, it gets replaced with a hodgepodge of...
You want a fun signifier with fun outfit.
Yeah.
But it's got to be Easter Bunny
Can't
instead of the Virgin
keep
Mary.
being Jesus. Gosh, he's everywhere.
So you need a bunny with a basket.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. In the 19th century, was the Tooth Fairy already established?
No. Santa's origins go back further, but the Tooth Fairy is a 20th century invention, it seems to be, or at least the very turn of the 20th century. Huh. Because it started out as an oral tradition, there's not a lot...
Literally.
There we go.
Hey, I did a Ken!
An oral hygiene tradition. There's not a lot of... And because, again, we hadn't sent all these kids off to get their social science degrees, there's not a lot of writing about this. You can see the European ancestors of it, like in... medieval Venice. In Italy, there's like a witch, a Befana, who brings you stuff at Christmas. But the Venetian one, the Maratenga, they had a witch who not only came at Christmas to fill your shoes with goodies or whatever, but also would come back year-round when you lost a tooth.
Oh, so, the same one.
Yeah, it's like repurposing Santa, but Santa also because what does he do in the off-season? Is he making...
He makes all this
is he
stuff.
Supervising elves and making rocking horses all year?
I always assume that in the hot summer, in the endless day of the Arctic summer, they're all in their shirt sleeves up there making dolls and stuff.
I assumed he would, if he's, and like most plutocrats, wouldn't he just make the elves do that and then just...
Yeah, right. He's sitting around he
hibernates.
That's why we have all those hilarious Coca-Cola ads with Santa in his swim trunks.
We always know what Santa looks like in the summer.
Well, I should say to those listening who wonder what a Jennings family Christmas party is like, the Jennings have you take off your shoes when you enter their home, no matter what time of year. But at their Christmas party, when you go to put on your shoes at the end of the night, they've put a present in your shoes.
We only did that once because it was it happened to fall on Saint, I don't know, there's some German thing.
Shoe Presentstein.
Yeah, exactly.
Presentburger.
Dr. Shoe Presentstein. There's some saint is it St. Nicholas Day?
Some saint's day.
I think it is St. Nicholas Day early in December. And we happened to have a Christmas party very early in December that year for scheduling reasons. And when my wife found out it was on St. Nicholas Day, she was like, this is awesome. We're going to make German food. We're going to make suckling pig and put
sausages in all their shoes.
Put candy in people's shoes. Put Wurst in your shoes.
She's very clever.
Well, I think we're going to do it again this year because, we're recording this before Christmas, but our plan is to put things in John's shoes again this year.
Oh,
because
good. Well, I'll wait by the mailbox for my invitation
because we haven't done it since COVID, I think. So other cultures had these kind of gift-giving tooth visitors who would take your tooth and leave you a little prize In Catalonia, angels would do it. In France in the 19th century, the Virgin Mary would actually take time out of her busy schedule.
She seems like she's got bigger fish to fry
Well,
than
in
that.
the picture, she's always holding a baby, but I've seen the baby. He's all grown up.
Well, his
Jesus has
face is grown up, but his body is still small and
No,
fat.
he's got a beard. He's off running. All those pictures of her must be file photos when she's got the baby. It appears she has lots of, once the kids are gone, she's going to be looking for a part-time job.
We never see the Virgin Mary as an old lady,
It's true.
but I think of her as a middle-aged woman.
Do you think of her as sneaking into French children's bedrooms and giving them coins?
Sort of. I mean, when you look at the Pietà, she looks very young and pretty. But when I think Virgin Mary doing stuff, like answering prayers and stuff,
Yeah.
I think of her as being about 40.
Well, even the Pietà's after Jesus' death, which is canonically when he's 33. So even if she's a very young teen mom, she's late. She's got to be mid-40s, late 40s.
Right. So she's
looking good.
She's kept young by her son being the anointed one, but then after he dies, she ages. She's not still alive, as far as I know.
Wandering the earth?
There's with a staff, with a jingle stick, and like an old crone. But as far as you know, she's never also transported directly to heaven, is she?
Oh, I think she is. Is she not?
At some point.
There is some assumption of the Virgin feast, right?
Oh,
I don't know.
Is that
It's never lined up with our Christmas party, so I'm unaware of the traditions.
If any of our Catholic listeners are jumping up and down, please write Ken at theomnibusproject@gmail.com.
It is indeed the assumption of the Virgin. I think the usual dogma here is that she did die, but instead of moldering in the earth, her body was taken back to heaven.
Right.
And it's in a Titian painting I'm looking at right now.
Is she
August
old or
15th.
is she young?
She's always young, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's unlikely. But in the most common version of this in Europe was the tooth, not fairy, but the tooth mouse. I guess
Tooth mouse.
along the lines of who in your house has access to a kid's room, who would collect little objects. It also ties in with let's put the tooth in the mouse hole for good luck.
The tooth mouse.
So a lot of Mediterranean countries, you got Topolino in Italy. In Spain, it was in Spain, it's funny because it's Ratoncito Perez. It's
he's got a little name.
Perez the little mouse. And that's spread into all of Latin America. So it's not uncommon in Latin America for Perez the little mouse to sneak under your pillow. Is that better or worse than a winged sylph?
I think maybe worse. If you found at any other time of the year a mouse under your pillow, you'd be... I climbed into bed last night and saw something move and looked over, and on the pillow next to me was a spider the size of a mouse.
Seattle in October.
I said, "What are you doing?" And I got out of bed and I picked up the pillow, and it was one of these fast-moving big spiders. And I was like, "This is not good." And the spider tried to get around to the other side of the pillow, so I'm running to the window and I flipped to the pillow, really giving the spider a whole new sense of reality and gravity.
But you're trying to save the spider.
Yeah, and so I threw open the window.
Threw out the pillow.
Stuck the pillow out of the window, and the spider was really tenacious. And so, at 1 o'clock in the morning, here's a guy shaking his pillow out the window, which if somebody looked, they were like, "Is this a Venetian thing?"
Away to the window, he flew like a flash.
And I shook it until the spider finally went off. And then, as you can imagine, laying in bed, then I was like, "Oh God, now I got to look everywhere." So I tore the bed apart, shook everything out, and then I'm laying in bed later, and I'm like, "Oh."
The good thing is there's not usually lots of spiders.
No, it's true.
One spider means I got this. This is my space. I'm eating all the bugs.
And if it was a spider that big, it probably ate all the other spiders. At what point does Fievel figure into this? Is Fievel a tooth stealer?
Fievel?
Well, I mean, when
the
you
mouse from the American Tale?
Yeah, if in Latin America they have Perez the tooth stealing mouse,
we need our most American mouse, Fievel, because we're an immigrant country.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah,
Fievel came from overseas.
He came from the shtetl, I think.
And what he's doing now is stealing teeth. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that's anti-Semitic.
Yeah, it is. They're coming for us.
Anti-mousetic.
They're going to cut. They're taking your teeth.
I take it back.
Yeah. We need a homegrown mouse like Mickey, maybe.
Oh, Mickey's the most famous mouse. But Mickey's driving a locomotive. He's not.
He's got a steamboat, probably. Yeah. Kids. I mean, maybe to a kid, the idea that a little cute mouse will come. Maybe that's cuter than a lady in a diaphanous gown with wings.
Cuter than a rat.
Cuter than Ratoncito Perez, for sure.
I feel like as a parent, though, if a mouse is under your kid's pillow, it's time to like go around the room and close up the mouse holes.
Agree. But it never becomes a fairy until the turn of the 20th century, which you may recall, if the Edwardians gave us anything, it was a weird fascination with fairies. There was kind of a fairy revival.
I thought it was wallpaper
in the late Victorian.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Both things, right? Your child's room needs two things, thought the Edwardians. When you put them to bed at 5:30 p.m.,
right?
You need nice wallpaper, and you need a little fairy in there.
Yeah, there are a lot of paintings of women in diaphanous gowns looking into a pond.
This was the time when we talked about this on the Tartans show. Scottish romances had come back, and so there was kind of a Celtic revival that lasted from late Victorian times up into the Edwardians. And the idea was that all things kind of Irishy were cute, and that includes all manner of sprites and pixies.
Except for cops and firemen.
Right. Firemen can still be cute.
Firemen,
There's not really a lot of calendars of hot cops.
No.
Is that what we need to do? Instead of defunding the police, we need to revitalize their image by oiling them down.
I mean, they might be happier.
Sure.
They're not very happy these days. Getting yelled at all the time.
Just tell them you'll give them their normal lavish overtime.
Plus.
To pose in a calendar.
Make them seem hot again. Let's make cops hot again.
Make cops hot again. That's kind of up to them, So during this Celtic revival period, fairies are everywhere. That's when you've got Tinkerbell makes her debut in Peter Pan in 1904. That's when the stage play comes out.
Oh.
1917 is those little girls in Yorkshire that
right.
fooled everybody into thinking they had fairies. And really they had just, cut pictures out of a coloring book and been like, yep. Cameras were so new that it was very easy to fool Arthur Conan Doyle with deep fakes. Deep fakes back then were like, I bought a coloring book.
It's like the UFO in the Brady Bunch.
So fairies kind of would have been a default thing, just like today, a Pokemon. Today it would be the tooth Pokemon or whatever.
Yeah.
But back then, okay, we need a magical being. Right, it's probably a fairy. And let me see if I can find this. The very first written, I think this is kind of a recent internet Google Archive era discovery. The very first written account of the tooth fairy comes from the Chicago Daily Tribune.
Famously still reporting on the news.
They're not going to endorse this year, but here it is. In 1908, in the early 20th century, they had a feature. Their women's page was called the Practical Housekeeper's Own Page. Mm-hmm. And people would send in these hints from Heloise type things. It's like, I put lemon juice on the brush before I beat the carpet or, whatever. Right. And the paper would actually award prizes for the best household tips from $1 to $10.
Oh, killer.
That's a lot of money. That's a year's groceries at the time,
sure,
probably.
Blue ribbon.
And in 1908, Lillian Brown from somewhere in Chicagoland sends in the following tip. Headline, Tooth Fairy. Many a refractory child, stubborn child, will allow a loose tooth to be removed if he knows about the tooth fairy. So it's a way to cajole the kid into pulling the tooth.
Oh.
If he takes his little tooth and puts it under the pillow when he goes to bed, the tooth fairy will come in the night and take it away, and in its place will leave some little gift. It is a nice plan for mothers to visit the 5-cent counter and lay in a supply of articles to be used on such occasions. So
for 5 cents, you can get a supply of articles.
Go buy some cheap crap at the department store, and then when your kid is like, I don't want you to pull my tooth, Mommy, just be like, well, then the tooth fairy will never bring you some cheap crap from the department store. Don't you want a thimble?
I mean, that seems a little extortionate.
Yes.
You say, do it because the tooth fairy, not don't do it
or you won't get it. What a good parent.
Yeah, well,
Look how you turned that around.
I read Mindy's mommy blog. You should have too.
And we don't have documentation of this must have been a thing well known enough. I mean, Lillian Brown did not think of the tooth fairy.
Right.
This is not ground zero, patient zero tooth fairy stuff, but it's uncommon enough that she thinks she can win $10 in the paper by telling other moms about it.
But
it's common enough that word is getting around.
Did she? Was there a prize?
That's left to the editorial.
Oh, I see.
They didn't announce who the winners were. It made it into the paper, and I think that means she got at least $1. But then it's, again, it's kind of silent. 20 years later, there's a short children's play, an 8-page play comes out for little kids that has a tooth fairy character. In 1949, there's finally a story in Collier's in which the tooth fairy is a plot device. But this is clearly, as late as after the war, like this is clearly a kind of a thing you might not have heard of. Like it's sub Elf on the Shelf level parenting lore.
I never heard of Elf on the Shelf until 2015.
Me too. I think I'm like the last two people who were told.
But you're saying Elf on a Shelf is like predates the Tooth Fairy?
No,
okay.
but I'm saying much in the way that like it's circulated among a certain kind of mom before anyone told the president. The Tooth Fairy was also under the radar.
Was it? I mean, I think of it as, like you're saying, Scandinavian, Germanic. Was there any kind of post-war, the Germans are actually interesting and kind of cute now that we've taken all their tanks? Like we're gonna look at the Germans in a different light, like back when they had strudel.
Maybe it's more that we've Americanized all their myths, and so now when we think of a fairy, we do not think of the Brothers Grimm and its troubling Central European origins. We think of Disney's Marilyn Monroe-ass fairy in her little dress.
Oh my God!
Like
Stop it!
Like we've neutered all of the folklore enough that now it's kind of safe for the suburbs.
I am such a Tinkerbell stan. I can't even say. But we out here on the
what happened to your only love normal sized women stand of literally 35 minutes ago?
You just said Marilyn Monroe. Tinkerbell. I just think of her as being able to turn into Marilyn Monroe.
I didn't. She never does in the movie. She's always tiny.
Well, that's because it's a movie.
It's for kids.
I'm talking about reality.
Okay, that makes sense.
At one point on tour, I was in a Walmart somewhere in God only knows wherever Walmarts are sold, and there was a Tinkerbell poster. And it was only 99 cents, like a wall poster, ostensibly for a child's
little girl's bedroom.
But in fact, she looked so captivating. And the poster was huge. I mean, the Tinkerbell itself has got to be 4 feet tall. And I just couldn't resist it. So I bought it, and it spent an entire tour rolled up on the dashboard of our van as an example of what was wrong with the lead singer of this band. Because
you didn't take it on stage?
No, everybody in the van had to look up every day at this poster and go like, "It's Tinkerbell. Like, what is the matter with you?" And I was like, "I don't know. She just seems she's the right amount of bratty,
Well, indie rock's a genre where you can get away with fairies.
Can be weird. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you guys aren't Enya, but
I think of all that stuff, fairies and Santas and stuff, as being East Coast stuff. Like out here in the West, it's like the salmon, the noble salmon brings you your gift. Ken, I've been trying to watch my budget lately, and one of the things I've noticed since the pandemic is I spend an awful lot more money on food than I used to. Both eating out and ordering in have become much more expensive, like ludicrously more expensive. And one of the solutions I've found in trying to keep my costs down is the fantastic value that I've been getting from Factor meals. Factor meals are chef prepared and dietitian approved, which I cannot say for all the food that I order in and eat out. And they are absolutely delicious, cheaper than takeout. And they put they put my family around the table. We all get in the kitchen and we get cooking. It's not so complicated that that you can even make a mistake. Factor really walks you through the process. And we have the satisfaction of having made dinner together. And it's not one of these like the food gets left on the porch and the delivery charge is $1,000. They have all kinds of different menus, 6 menu preferences, like do you want vegetarian? Do you want all protein? You can get like comfort foods like chicken and gravy and pork chops and mashed potatoes, but you can also get vegan options that are like surprisingly delicious. I ordered the chef's choice and got a whole variety of different styles of meals. And normally I would not, nor would anyone in my family necessarily choose a vegan meal, but the vegan meals were spectacular. I was really surprised. So I can't recommend highly enough, and especially in the holidays, it's such a stressful time. Everybody's freaking out. You don't really want maybe to spend hours cooking a home-cooked meal, but you can have a home-cooked meal more cheaply and a lot more efficiently by ordering Factor. So what I'm going to recommend to our fans, and I'm just speaking from personal experience, go to factormeals.com/numeral50 omnibus and use the code 50omnibus to get 50% off your first box. That's how you remember the 50. It's 50% off your first box plus free shipping. So go to factormeals.com, use the code 50omnibus and get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. I can't recommend Factor highly enough, Ken. And happy holidays.
The first time I think I came across the tooth fairy treated in fiction. I mean, the other thing that happens after the war is there starts to be more and more media directed at kids. So kids hear about these things from other vectors than their parents.
Right.
Suddenly there's books in your school library all about losing your first tooth, fears of that, about the tooth fairy. In kindergarten, I read Robert McCloskey's book, One Morning in Maine, which I had not thought about until like last night when I was looking up tooth fairy lore. Do you remember any of his books like Make Way for Ducklings or Blueberries for Sal? Do you know this guy?
Well,
Homer Price, I think. Kid that makes all the donuts. Time to make the donuts.
There's a story about. I'm going to go all the way here.
You free associate. Why not?
One Morning in Maine played a very important role in the childhood of John Hodgman's wife, Catherine.
Oh, is that the book?
And at one point in one of the books, there's a page where there's a country store and a shopkeeper, and he has a cash register.
That is in One Morning in Maine.
One Morning in Maine, and because Catherine, grew up in Maine, the author lived in a knowable place in Maine, and there was a knowable store that had this knowable cash register that is identical to the cash register in the book.
She recognized her.
She not only recognized it, she bought the cash register.
Wow.
And the cash register from One Morning in Maine sits on the bar in their kitchen in Brooklyn. It is the register that became enshrined in the book. And I had not read the book and did not know any of this. And so, as you can imagine, visiting their home, I said, what's with the old-timey cash register? And then the book came out, the whole story, how they found it. It was, they bought it at auction.
It seems like it must be hard to buy a cash register because how are they going to ring you up?
Oh!
You've literally got the register.
You out-Kenned me.
Nah. Neither of us are into it. Moving on. But this is a book. It's the sequel to Blueberries for Sal. It's just kind of a slice of life thing about a normal Maine day with clamming and, as you say, apparently a grocery store and trip to town and all of the above.
Normal Maine stuff.
Just Maine country stuff. And the girl with the loose tooth, Sal, of Blueberries for Sal fame, actually loses her tooth at the beach while clamming, I think, and then can't find it. And there's a lot of, will the tooth fairy be able to find me without the tooth?
Oh, because she didn't get a certificate.
Exactly. She didn't get the thing. But this was the kind of stuff media I grew up on where it was just assumed that everybody in the world knew and accepted the tooth fairy. And in fact, it was kind of brand new. Like the tooth fairy did not get standardized as an American tradition until after the war. It wasn't popular till the 50s. Like you and I are probably the first generation of an America that grew up expecting tooth fairy lore. Like by the time they lost their tooth, oh boy, there's going to be a coin.
I don't remember a pre-tooth fairy time. So yeah, almost certainly I was.
I guess I just assumed it was like Santa. It was like some vague 19th century thing.
Yeah.
And yes, to the Mouse and Virgin Mary and angel variants, the witch, yes, but no to the the modern fairy. And, as we alluded to, no one studied it until the very late 1970s. A woman named Dr. Rosemary Wells was teaching at Northwestern University's now defunct dental hygiene school. And so she's not some she's not some going nowhere social scientist looking for a niche.
Right.
She accidentally stumbles upon the fact that no expert that she can find in her field or elsewhere at Northwestern knows anything about the tooth fairy.
And she's not going to get tenure just writing theses about dental hygiene.
She's already a respected medical mind,
good,
John.
Good. Okay.
But she also, in addition to this, becomes an accidental expert on the tooth fairy. She starts, as I said, she's the one who sends out thousands of surveys to parents and kids about what their tooth fairy beliefs are. She starts publishing journal articles about the different variants.
Well, that's fun.
And in 1993, I think she passed away around the year 2000, but in 1993, towards the end of her life, she had amassed so much of it. She was the world's foremost tooth fairy expert. She had accumulated so many tooth fairy postcards and dental office stickers and books and all the rest. Stuffed fairy animals, whatever. She actually turned her Deerfield, Illinois home into a museum. She turned her collection of tooth fairy abilia into a museum and welcomed school buses full of kindergartners and showed them around every weekday until I think her death in the early 2000s.
How fun! I mean, fun and also. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Nobody would have known.
It's not like she was out recording all the Delta Blues artists before they died.
But yeah, she is the Alan Lomax of the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
But she was doing it in the 50s with surveys, and she wrote considerably on it. Today, you were talking about the regionality of the Tooth Fairy as kind of an East Coast thing that maybe spread west. Today, most Tooth Fairy studies are done by none other than Delta Dental, the insurance outfit, the dental HMO that I'm sure you have a sheaf of envelopes from.
I think I have their card in my wallet.
They track every year what they call the Tooth Fairy Index.
Is there a thing where we watch her fly from the North Pole?
She's very slow. Now she's going down the block. Some other kid there must have lost a tooth. It's year round, unlike NORAD. No, this is a like kind of more like the Big Mac index. It's an economic indicator where tooth fairy money is tracked against, say, inflation or the S&P 500.
You mean how much the tooth fairy gives?
How much the tooth fairy has been giving.
So it's not standardized.
Well, Delta Dental started out with this tooth fairy index in 2001, perhaps after 9/11. They realized it was time, and they at that point the average tooth was worth $1.60.
Who gives their kid $1.60? Oh, I see. It's just averaging from like $3.
But it does imply that for everybody who's grabbing some coins and putting under the pillow like we did, or just what you would think, which would be the default dollar bill, for every one of those people, there's a bunch of people leaving 5s and 20s under the pillow.
Yeah, right.
But that was in 2001. It peaked last year at $6.23 as an average before sliding a little to $5.84 this year, presumably with inflation softening.
I mean, in 2003, at the time, I would have said we have reached peak American boredom. But little did I know, 20 years later, the amount of boredom.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine it being above $5 because it means that even for people who are like, I don't want to shortchange my kid, I'm leaving a 5.
Right.
For every person doing that, and presumably a bunch of people still leaving change in 1s. There's a bunch of people leaving 10s and 20s.
Yeah, wealth inequality, Ken. This is incompatible with Marxism.
It's extremely regionally located as well. It's in the Midwest. The Tooth Fairy is at their most parsimonious $3.63 on average.
Yeah.
Whereas here in the West, $8.54 a tooth.
I mean, I guess if you think that
I owe my kids money.
Baby teeth are a limited resource. And it is only a certain period.
How many things are you guaranteed in your life to only have? How many possessions are you guaranteed to only have, say, 15 of?
Right.
There's not very many.
So people are saying, here's $20, but a kid has no sense of $20.
And there's no aftermarket for it.
I had a couple of kids come and clean my yard one time. And they worked all day. And I gave them each $20. And their parents were appalled.
At how much it was?
Yeah. You gave them $20. Like, they've never made more than $1 for all their chores. And this is going to spoil them. And I was like, I don't know, man. They worked pretty hard.
My wife did that with babysitting. She would actually pay babysitters like what she thought a
minimum wage.
When she would actually pay them minimum wage, and other parents were so mad. Like, how can we compete with that? And it was very easy to get a sitter, it turned out, if you actually...
Yeah, if you pay them $15.
Maybe it wasn't Seattle minimum wage. I feel like even back then she was paying, like a sad Huxtable era minimum wage of
$5 an hour,
$5.50 or something. Yeah. And the other parents were like
we
distraught.
Give them $5 for the whole thing.
Exactly. So, there's always a lot of discussion of like, should these things exist? Like, if you were creating parenting in a vacuum, you would never be like, and make sure you lie to your children for years about who fills Christmas stockings.
I'm starting to feel like this sounds like an Instagram comment section that goes below any time a parent publishes anything.
Or anytime a parent says anything. Yeah.
Oh, you're ruining your child. Do you know how many sharks killed cans of Dr. Pepper last year?
It is pretty random that we just all buy into this thing. Yeah, don't lie to your kids, but definitely do so for like 7 to 10 years about a very specific thing.
I know, but those parents that are like, I have never lied to my kids, that's garbage parenting too. What the hell are you talking about?
A lot of research, it's not like every parenting expert today will tell you that Santa is bad. Really, most of the research says that there's lots of pro-social lying that kids need to learn about. Yeah. And this is one of those.
Don't lie about Santa Claus, but then give your kids 7 medications before they're 9. Like, which is worse?
You're saying don't vaccinate? Is that just to be clear?
Listen, don't vaccinate, and also climate change, a lie.
That's good. That'll be the pull quote from the show.
Wait. This show is airing after the election. We should say at this moment we have no idea what our future holds.
If vaccines are still legal.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. If tooth fairies are still legal.
It's speaking of coins, it's a coin toss right now. Mm-hmm. There seems to be some consensus that like there could be some upside for kids to, the time of their life when they believe in magical thinking to be told these stories. And then because what gradually happens is kids do not tend to be disillusioned. They tend to gradually or have a traumatic moment of like, mom and dad lied about Santa. But there does seem to be a kind of gradual realization as magical thinking is replaced by more, advanced cognition. Oh, that was all a game. I see.
In my own child's life, like, and I think in my own, and certainly my sister's, you don't learn that Santa isn't real on Christmas Eve. It's a gradual, when they're 8 at Christmas, they believe in Santa, and by whatever year it happens, they already don't believe in Santa long before Christmas comes because they cross that threshold, right? And I never got any sense that she was like, you lied to me.
And they tend to still play along. They tend to still enjoy the game.
I still play along.
And it's because I think you can often, you introduce your kids to, Thomas the Tank Engine without telling them, and this is just a story. It's a lie. Trains don't really have eyeballs.
Right.
It's part of the kind of upbringing they receive that life is full of stories and it's less important which are factual for a while.
Yeah.
I think it's the Tooth Fairy is defensible. The Tooth Fairy in particular, I think can be wielded for the force for good of like, kids are often scared of losing a tooth. Suddenly part of your body is wiggling. Is it going to hurt? Is there going to be blood? And the Tooth Fairy is a way to kind of blunt that.
Yeah.
It's in the parenting arsenal.
Yeah.
So
there needs to be more magic in our lives, not less.
And all the better if it's a woman with wings flitting in your window.
They can go under your pillow.
You're smiling now.
And that concludes The Tooth Fairy, entry 1317.SS0606, certificate number 19230 in the omnibus. Futurelings, boy, social media is terrible, and worse all the time. Do you read comments anymore? I would think that you would have stopped reading all comments.
Sometimes you can't help yourself.
Yeah,
because you're kind of hoping for the dumb one.
For me. I always go on now the comments looking for the first iteration where somebody goes, "Oh, you think this is cute, but actually," and then they say something like absolutely the worst. Like, "Oh, you should never touch a rock because the rocks something." It's the worst. And so you should not be on social media, and I think a lot of futurelings aren't. I think the only social media they participate in is futurelings-oriented social groups.
And they do all the TikTok dances.
And the TikTok dances, right.
It's important.
But between that and going to futurelings fan groups on Facebook and Reddit and Discord, that should cover all your socializing needs. And otherwise, you can stay in your 2-bedroom condo in Indianapolis, Indiana, and never venture outside.
You think that's the median? That's the mean omnibus listener?
I think
2-bedroom Indiana condo owner.
I think that most omnibus listeners are centered in Western Indiana.
Most of them.
I mean, well, I'm just saying, like,
over 51%.
I'm saying if you did a map of all, and you're including the ones in Australia and the ones in Germany.
If you take a Seattle one and a Florida one.
Yeah. Central Indiana is the hub.
Oh, do we want them all to congregate there? Should we start a utopian community on the plains?
Oh, maybe we should. We'll do our little Oneida out there.
That's right.
You know what it should be is the path of the giant tornado that we covered in an early omnibus. The 3 tornadoes.
Are we avoiding that, or
no? That we should put it right there, because what are the chances a tornado would hit there again?
Our vow to you. It won't be a sex cult. A lot of you are already thinking this is going to be a sex cult. And let me just say, absolutely not.
Maybe
John's already waffling.
Maybe Ken's part of the compound will be like no sex, and then there'll be other places. You can write us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. You can send us mail to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington 98155. And hopefully you will see the wisdom and see the many, many benefits.
See the merit.
And the merit of joining our Patreon, which is maybe one of the best Patreons I've ever heard of.
It's often called the best Patreon?
The best Patreon. They send us letters all the time from Patreon headquarters like, "You're making it hard on the rest of us. You give so much."
I actually met that Patreon. A ramen restaurant I'm aware of was trying to get funds for their new ramen cookbook.
Uh-huh.
And so they started a Patreon, and the prizes were just phenomenally undervalued. It was like, if you give us $15, you'll get a copy of the cookbook. But if you give $16, I'll come to your house.
I know.
The chef will make you ramen for 6 hours. And I was like, I just want to tell them.
It's the Amanda Palmer problem.
I just want to tell them, don't promise too much.
I got a letter the other day from someone saying, you came to Patreon once in San Francisco and did a tour of the offices and talked to everybody.
Is that true?
Yes. And at one point, this is years ago when they were trying to get me to start a Patreon, and I was like, I don't know, seems a little sus. They were like, come by the offices, let's walk you through. And at one point we were there in the employee lunchroom, and the person who was giving me a tour was like, okay, I've got a conference room reserved, and we can go into this like conference room where there's no air conditioning and talk about all the many benefits of Patreon. And I was like, okay, fine. And we walked over, and it was a glass wall, and there were people in the conference room having a conference. And they saw the person that was giving me a tour, and I guess that person gave them the hairy eyeball, because they all stood up and like left the conference room to give it over to us so they could talk to me about Patreon. And I got a letter just from the government the other day. It said they were suckers, but I got another letter from this guy saying, I was one of the people in the conference room, and I knew you, and I was too shy or embarrassed to say hello, or too professional, one of the three. And now, 5 years later, I would just like to say that I was in the conference room when you came by and had a weird conference in the little cube. I was like, wow, if I have like deep roots in Patreon, why am I not getting some kind of better deal?
Well, think about how many people, there were only 6 people there or something that you kicked out, and one of them was some diehard Long Winters fan. Like 1 in 6 Americans
that's right.
does a double take when you walk into a conference room because they love your work so much.
Not even in Indiana.
Not even in Indiana. Listeners, from our vantage point, here in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived, particularly for those of us recording right before Election Day. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. If the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.